A brand new champion has been crowned on NXT as we saw the main event last night. Isaiah Swerve Scott defeats Bronson Reed. Last weekend, we had an amazing main event match on AEW Dynamite with Kenny Omega going up against Jungle Boy. And tonight, we had an amazing go-home show for the last show at Daly's Place for AEW Dynamite. What's up, everyone? Jose G here, along with Rico El Glorioso. And tonight on the Debrief, we're going to be covering everything you need to know on WWE NXT and AEW here on the Debrief. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out! What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Debrief. I'm your host, Jose G, and next to me is the top Chico himself, Rico El Glorioso, and we are here to bring you the only show on Sportskeeda Wrestling that covers WWE, NXT, and WWE Dynamite. I mean, AEW Dynamite. Man, how could JR mess that up at the end? Wow.
So good. Everything ended so well. Amazing main event. A really good show tonight. And a nice little video package to send off Jacksonville, Florida, being the weekly home of AEW Dynamite. That's the right way to say it, JR. And then you fumble it right at the end, right as you're signing off. Good old JR does it again.
Oh, my God. I could only imagine the reactions from Excalibur and from Tony. So, and I'm sure Twitter's going to have tons of fun with it. But anyways, guys, welcome to the show. Tonight, we're going to be covering what went down on AEW Dynamite this week and last Friday. Plus, we're going to cover what went down in a major title change last night and NXT with Isaiah Swerve Scott becoming the new NXT North American champion. So we're going to be discussing all that. So make sure you are hitting that like button and share button. Engage with tonight's show. Also, make sure you are subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Really important. You know why? Because we're going to be having tons of YouTube exclusives, such as interviews, writing with Russo, all those exclusive interviews that you guys are used to seeing on Facebook are now going to be on YouTube. So really important. You go over there, you hit subscribe, you smash that notification bell so you never, ever miss a brand new video when we drop it or when we go live with breaking news or the live post shows just like this tonight. So Rico, we had a great AEW, not only tonight, but what I thought was last Saturday. But the marquee of last Saturday was the AEW title match. Jungle Boy, who tonight is the first wrestler in AEW to compete and have 50 wins under his belt, the best record in AEW right now, had an amazing match with one Kenneth Omega last Saturday in a barn burner. Great match. A little bit of involvement here and there, but at the end of the day, the cleaner cleaned the house.
Man, it was such a good match. And then, of course, we knew it, though. We knew it had to be shenanigans. We know that it's Kenny Omega being the dastardly heel that he is and using all his lackeys to get his way. But let's talk about Jungle Boy, man. I know we talked about it before, like especially when they brought him in, all the stuff that he's done in the indies. So it made perfect sense for him to come into AEW, even the teaming up with Luchasaurus and then adding Marco Stunt. But we knew how talented he was. And if you guys didn't know, now you know. And that was the reason why he won that battle royal. The whole time we were thinking of the Christian Cage. You know, it's easy. Christian versus Kenny. That's going to be the next feud. No, they have that faith in Jungle Boy. And when we were talking about him being a future champion, they're showing that he is ready much sooner rather than later. So expect him to have a title. I would not be surprised if he now becomes a person that defeats Miro. I would not be surprised because that is how they're booking Jungle Boy. And he did an amazing job, not only on Saturday Night Dynamite versus Kenny Omega for the AEW Championship, but even tonight going up against Jack Evans. So putting him against another person who is one of the most athletic guys in WWE, AEW, like you keep adding even more to this guy's portfolio, man. You're showing why Jungle Jack Perry needs to be a champion. Even if, you know, you're not 100% sold on the Jungle Boy persona, in that ring, he is one amazing talent. So expect him to have a title, if not by the end of this year, by next year, easily.
Guys, make sure you're sounding off in the comments. Let us know what your thoughts were of last Saturday's main event on AEW Dynamite. Kenny Omega and Jungle Boy. Steven Chambers watching us on Facebook saying Jungle Boy needs to change his name, maybe to Jungle Man, now that he's dating one of Dark Order's Anna Jay, right?
Yeah, he is. They showed that nice little steamy
Congratulations.
picture. Hand on booty, claiming that is his. Bro, he is living his best life right now.
Yeah. Marley Warwick watching us on Facebook. She says, did I hear WWE Dynamite or was I hearing things? No, Molly, you heard correctly. At the very end of the broadcast, JR, before he signed off, it's been a great time here at WWE Dynamite. Good night, guys. And that happened. So, yeah, that your ears were not deceiving you. Ozzy Madero's AEW's on Wednesday night, then Friday.
Starting the week before my birthday, starting officially on August 13th with Rampage.
Yep, we got Rampage coming up. Ozzy Maderos is also saying that it's awesome. Jungle Boy was great. And Ken Davis, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us, Kev. And Jeff Samuels saying Miro had the best intro today. Jose and Rico, Iron Man vibe with the Messiah. Imagine Miro with a stable like Seth when he was. Yes, we're gonna get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that because that entrance was like, wait, what's happening now?
the Redeemer is with us. But yeah, man, last Saturday was a pretty dang good show. This week's it was also a really good show. But before we jump into tonight's Dynamite, let's recap really quick what went down on NXT. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, we have a brand new NXT North American champion in one Isaiah Swerve Scott. Hit row, climbing to the top, not only in the charts, but in NXT. And with Isaiah Swerve Scott being the new champion, I think this is a great move because I think the Colossal is coming to Monday Night Raw or SmackDown. I think he's making the jump to the main roster.
Yeah, so if you guys hadn't been watching Sportskeeda, make sure you also check out all the news videos that have been dropping throughout the day. Because even, I believe Kevin Callum was also talking about, like, we know that Vince McMahon has been coming around the Performance Center scouting talent, and there was a reason why they had Karrrion Kross and Bronson Reed perform dark matches, and you could have caught it on Main Event on Hulu to check it out without the great fanfare from Karrrion Kross. It was just NXT champion Karrrion Kross. No crazy entrance, no Scarlett Bordeaux. It was just him going out there, having his match, of course, winning. So we know that these are two guys that are going to be coming up to the main roster in Raw or SmackDown much sooner rather than later, more than likely with this draft that's coming up after SummerSlam. So it's not surprising. It's not surprising that Bronson Reed happened to drop the title. And if there was anybody to take the title off of him right now, it is Isaiah Swerve Scott. And it's the perfect timing because they also announced that we're having another breakout tournament. And this is where Bronson Reed and Isaiah Swerve Scott made their names, if you didn't already know, especially Isaiah Swerve Scott having been kill shot over on Lucha Underground and being Shane Strickland over on MLW. So this was the way of introducing him to WWE. Now look at him. Everybody is still thriving in NXT, except for one person who is no longer even wrestling because he retired when Jordan Miles, aka ACH, happened to retire from wrestling. But everybody else that's still there from that tournament with Dexter Lumis, like we said, Bronson Reed, Joaquin Wilde. So many guys really made a quick start to their career in NXT through this breakout
tournament. Definitely a catalyst. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree.
Imagine this being that launching point. So that person who wins the breakout tournament, because it was announced by William Regal, the winner chooses any champion of their choice. If they win a tournament, they can call out any champion. I would not be surprised if they call out Isaiah Scott as the NXT North American champion, because that'd be a perfect full circle kind of story. So this is a perfect timing to give him this title, especially now with Hit Row, with the fire entrance, with just the killer skills on the mics from all four people. This is the right time, especially if you're going to move over Bronson Reed. Let this be Swerve's house.
Absolutely. And I think this is the right time to do it. You have a banger theme song. You have the crew. They got the look. So I think this is the right time. I think this is absolutely the right time. And also the NXT Breakout Tournament, I think that was also a great time to announce it because we're getting back on the road. So, they got to start churning out some new stars, especially if Monday Night Raw and SmackDown are going to take stars from NXT, So Yeah, so it's a rotation. It's a rotation. We did have a number one contenders triple threat match for the NXT Tag Team Championships, the Women's Tag Team Championships. It was Io Shirai, Zoe Stark going up against Dakota Kai, Raquel Gonzalez, and Ember Moon, and Shotzi Blackheart. And this was also a really fun match to open up NXT. Everybody had their spot. Everybody hit their finishers, but it was Io Shirai and Zoe Stark who now will be facing Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell for the NXT Women's Championships. Is that going to be going down next week at the Bash?
I believe so. It seems like that's what it's leaning towards. But man, it's going to be a rough out for Io Shirai and Zoe Stark because we still have that unfinished story between Io and Raquel Gonzalez. So don't be surprised if find a way to retain their titles with the help of a little bit of shenanigans.
Yeah, man. We also had a couple different segments involving Karrrion Kross and Johnny Gargano. So Kross called out Johnny Gargano earlier in the night, and he pretty much challenged him, was like, "Okay, face me now. Now you can't do anything from behind me." So Johnny Gargano comes out. He's like, "You can't touch me. You're not on my level." And then he gets attacked by Austin Theory in the back. So it was like a 2-on-1 situation. Then it moved back, right?
It was so Karrrion Kross is coming into the building. Johnny and Austin attack him. So Karrrion comes out and calls him out, and Austin Theory attacks him. So the entire episode was like the Io Shirai and Raquel Gonzalez basically, where
that's
just
a
kept
very
attacking
good
him.
yes.
And it was funny because Karrrion called him out and he's like, "All right, fine, come out here." Again, they have another brawl, even with Samoa Joe being the enforcer. I loved how he just let Johnny just kind of, he gets put to sleep. And then he did the same thing with Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole, where Adam Cole is just being put in a heel hook, and he's just waiting. Yeah, it's fine. And then later on, even after they had the face-off between Karrrion Kross and Johnny in the ring, the most dangerous area of the CWC, Jose, is that damn parking lot.
That parking lot, man.
It is unsafe there because once again, Johnny attacks Karrrion Kross as he's getting into his car with the beautiful Scarlet Bordeaux already inside the car. And he starts even using, trying to use a door to attack him. But no, this time Karrrion gets the upper hand. And it looks like he's about to run over poor little Johnny Gargano. But out comes Samoa Joe with the save. And I just love how he just did it. Like holding up Johnny Gargano as he's on the ground, holding him by his shirt. It's like, man, you really pissed him off this time. All right, now it's time to get up. And he just starts dragging him across the parking lot back inside the building. Oh, man, this is going to be one hard-hitting affair when they finally face off for that AEW championship.
Yeah, man. I see what you did there. Stop it, Rico. Don't do that, Rico. You're going to confuse me. Good night, everybody. Sorry. All right, so we also had a good match here between Cameron Grimes and Ari Sterling. Now, Ari Sterling is mainly featured on 205 Live. I think this was his first NXT match, and he actually did a pretty good job.
So
but
this
Cameron
is going to be
Grimes,
205 NXT because of all the releases that happened.
205 NXT, yep.
Instead of having 205 Live after SmackDown, I think they're going to tie it into NXT, which makes more sense. So,
well, I think they were already talking about expanding the cruiserweight division. So this is the way to do it. So I think this is right. But it was what happened after this match that led LA Knight to come out of the match and gloat about how he beat Grimes for the $1 Million Championship and took out Ted DiBiase. Grimes challenged Knight and putting the title on the line next week. But if Knight wins, Grimes has to be his butler. So we got that match going down next week. He ain't dropping that title.
Yeah, he's winning. Yeah, he's winning.
He ain't dropping that title
for a little bit.
He's gonna be his butler for a good minute.
But it's nice to see that he's still making that money off of the car insurance commercial along with Ric Flair. I think that's how he made his first $1 million in order to go for the $1 Million Championship. Was the overpricer that gets taken out by Ric Flair when it comes to the insurance. But man, somebody, like I said, somebody that's going to need insurance is going to be Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly because man, these guys are still going at it. They're going to have a legit one-on-one match after all of the stipulation matches they've had in the past at Great American Bash. It's going to be one-on-one to see who is the better in-ring wrestler when it comes to these two. But again, this is another great segment with Samoa Joe. I feel like it's setting up a match between Samoa Joe and Adam Cole, right? Like it feels like it's leading that way with Joe just continuing to push those buttons and letting Adam Cole, get beat up a little bit before finally intervening. It looks like if we do get an in-ring match return from Samoa Joe, it might be against Adam Cole, and that would be a great match.
All right, so I wanted to ask you, because I kind of noticed this last night, especially because if you look at last night's NXT, there was 3 or 4 matches, including Xia Li. All right. About 4 matches. Now, in those 4 matches, I felt that through the entire 2 hours, they had way more compelling stories, which every single storyline that's going on, than the 3 hours of Monday Night Raw. Just because every story had an intention. Gargano with Kross. All right. Samoa Joe, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, because that's a 3-part story now, because Samoa Joe choked out Kyle O'Reilly. Adam Cole. Was it last week, 2 weeks ago?
A couple weeks ago, it feels like.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, right? And Adam Cole definitely has some resentment towards that. So the writing, the storytelling is a lot more intentional, and you just pick up where it was, where on Monday Night Raw, there's so many things going on, and then they change the script like right before the shows go on. So I thought it was a very well-told stories on all aspects of all the rivalries going on last night. I thought it was very well put together.
Yeah, and there was actually a 5th match, but it was the squash match. That was Roderick Strong defeating Asher Hale. But it really came down to, it was just a Diamond Mine promo. Basically, it was a chance for Malcolm Bivens to really talk up, Roderick Strong. He unleashed a new submission move, so he doesn't have to use End of Heartache as his only finisher. Now he has a new kind of like butterfly, like headlock submission move there. But yeah, they tell.
Looks vicious.
If the thing about NXT, it's efficiency with your time. You have 2 hours, and A to B, and even when they have these little ones that cross over to each other, they do it so well, because not only does it plant seeds to next future storylines, you're not wasting any time. There's no wasted backstage segments or promos. No, everything is done with a purpose.
Everything's intentional, and that's what's missing, I guess, from Monday Night Raw. Everything is intentional. But let's talk really quick about Xia Li and Mercedes Martinez, because they had a mixed tag match last night. Tnt Shaw's Boa and Xia Li went up against Mercedes Martinez and Jake Atlas, and it ended in referee stoppage because of a vicious roundhouse kick from Xia Li, knocking Martinez out. And this was real. Like this, she got concussed. She was taken to the hospital. You can tell immediately by the way she fell, and by the way she was trying to. Yes, she
didn't brace her fall. Normally, when you take that hit, or you try to block part of it, or as you're falling, you're gonna brace your fall,
or at least roll with the strike. But no,
her
she
arms
got hit
crossed, and she just face planted hard. And even if you weren't sure about it, you could see how glazed over she was when Xia Li is pinning her, and this is supposed to be the end of the match, but instinctively. And this shows you just how much experience Mercedes Martinez has in wrestling. Instinctively, her first instinct was to put her arm up and to kick out, even though I don't think she was supposed to at that time. So I'm sure that, confused everybody. They had Xia Li back up. They had the camera focus on her so that the ref can actually talk to Mercedes Martinez. But you just saw it, even after they declared, the end of the match, Mercedes Martinez, she was pulling herself out of the ring because she was just not there. She took that kick square, and they replayed it multiple times, and you see the entire foot of Xia Li just clock her right on the temple area, and just
it wasn't even not only just that roundhouse kick, but at the beginning of the match, Xia Li hit a really high, kind of like a super kick, thrust kick type of deal, and that clocked Mercedes Martinez too on the jaw pretty stiffly. So
that loosened it up, and then that kick just finished it, man.
Yeah, so. I hope that Mercedes Martinez recovers and that she gets back into the ring soon. I'm sure if this is a concussion, I'm sure she's going to have to adhere to the concussion protocol. But I am a huge fan of Mercedes Martinez. We've spoken very highly about her on our show on Weekends of Wrestling. And we just hope, not only just from us, from the Weekends of Wrestling, but also from the Sportskeeda Wrestling family, get well soon. And we can't wait to see you back in the ring, Mercedes.
But man, that just added that much more to Xia Li. So if you didn't already know that she can be a fierce striker, like unfortunate as this is, this hands a little bit more credence to Xia Li, and hopefully, of course, it's NXT. So again, they're going to use this. They're going to be efficient with the storytelling, and I'm sure they're going to be able to tie this in. Not only to continue to push Xia Li, but also to show a nice comeback story for Mercedes Martinez when she comes back. But if you want to talk about hard hitting, there's two less guys that you can go away from when it comes to hard strikes than Toothless Timmy Thatcher and Old Man Ciampa, because they had a face-to-face sit-down in-ring promo against MSK. And man, I'm getting more excited for this, because this is just a complete different styles of wrestling between the hard-hitting guys versus MSK, who are much more high-flying and much more versatile. So they ran the promo. Tommaso Ciampa continues to kill it in the mic. You don't need Timothy Thatcher to say anything except for hey, you respect him. That's all he needed to say. Tommaso Ciampa held down that entire promo, and poor Wesley and Nash Carter, they tried to hold their own against Old Man Ciampa. No, not even close. That was all Tommaso's time, bro.
Unfortunately for MSK, I think you could definitely see this one big gaping hole in their game, and it's called the microphone. It's called promos. You could tell last night that, I don't know. This is just me.
Nervous. It felt like they were nervous.
Yeah.
Like there's a crowd there, and they have to hold their own and be believable against Tommaso Ciampa. And they're trying to really hold up the title. But when Tommaso said that line, nobody elevates a title in NXT better than Tommaso Ciampa. That was the realest statement he could have ever said. And there was nothing MSK could have said to come back from that. So I think the second he said that, it killed any sort of credence of what MSK could say.
Yes, agreed.
That was the mic drop without the mic drop.
Yes.
Nobody elevates a title better than Tommaso Ciampa. And I was
was it Wesley that slapped that slapped Toothless Timmy?
Yeah.
And Ciampa is holding him back, save it for next week. I'm gonna let this one pass. And then he gets into this ear, and then he's like, I'm gonna let this one pass, but come next week, those golds are coming.
And bring your pride and those belts, because we're taking both of them. I was like,
and then he finishes with a kiss on the cheek.
Tommaso.
That was
great. That is a class on how to drop a
MSK
promo from one
MSK needs to take notes. MSK needs to take notes.
Yeah, I want them to lose now. I'm always supporting MSK, and I know you're always against them. On this promo, I'm on your side. Like, they should lose those belts just because of that promo with Tommaso Ciampa just taking them to school.
Yeah, completely agree. Let's jump into the comments here, Rico, before we jump into this week's AEW Dynamite. Paul Koronkowski is saying on Facebook, did you see the end of AEW Dynamite with good old JR closing with saying there's nothing better than a live WWE Dynamite show? Really, Jim Ross? Well, Paul, you're in luck. We did. And we opened up the show with it. So, yes, we actually absolutely saw that. And I could only wonder what Twitter's saying right now. So I might jump in there when we're talking about AEW. Let's see. Paul Koronkowski is all saying Xia Li is a beast. She rocks. Wow. So tough. Completely agree. Complete reinvention. Mortal Kombat Xia Li. Absolutely.
The only thing I didn't like, it feels like out of all the weapons that she's very proficient at, the bow staff is not her number one. I would much rather stick to like the swords and to everything else, because it looked like she had a little bit of trouble handling that bow staff. Everything else though she did was amazing. And
right? Like
it's like
stick with the sword.
No, sword. Stick a sword, bring size out, do more like close combat weapons, because those are more your forte.
I think she was probably afraid that she was going to hit Boa.
I think she was going to, because when she was trying to do the whole turning, it's like she was really like paying attention to where he was, Because the last thing you need to do, you already knocked out Mercedes Martinez, but imagine if she would have clocked Bo right before the match happened. And
that would have been hilarious. That would have been great.
That would have killed all the momentum from Tian Shaw.
That would have been the gift. That would have been the gift of the year. So that.
I was saying, do you remember the Big E with AJ Lee when he came out there in that one match and he was doing the stretch and he like clocked her right in the jaw and she just like, and she smiled at him and she just kept going like a champ. Like that's what I was imagining if she was gonna hit Bo. That was what happened. Like smack his sunglasses off, but he would like turn back and still look menacing. Just
what's up? Jumping into your guys' comments here, Steven Chambers is saying new tag champs, Ciampa and Thatcher next week. Ciampa's going to kill you. Yeah. Fans really not liking MSK. I've been saying this for several weeks, guys. Yeah. Several weeks. The fans are turning on MSK. And if anything, to prove that I was right, last night, that promo itself. That's all I'm going to say. Sean Smith also commenting here on Facebook. Oh, JR in secret negotiations to go back to the E.
Oh, God.
James Allward, he's saying, "Show it's true that WWE lives rent free in AEW's head."
This is JR, and you know he's getting a little up there in age, so poor guy. He sees Jericho, he sees all these guys, like, oh yeah, WWE Dynamite, yeah, sure, why not?
Unbelievable. Well, man, let's jump into this week's. Let's jump into this week's Dynamite.
WWE Dynamite. Yeah.
Oh my God. They're never gonna let this go. But I feel bad for JR now, man, because nobody's gonna let this go. Nobody's gonna let this go
next week in Miami in order to make up for JR. Like Road Rager has to be spectacular so that can be that can kill this whole stopping point, because this whole week is gonna be that. This whole week is everybody talking about JR saying WWE Dynamite on the last episode at Daly's place.
It's going to catch wildfire, bro. I'm telling you.
But speaking of wildfire, man, starting off hot, we have Chris Jericho back on commentary. It felt right. It felt right having Chris Jericho back alongside Excalibur, Tony Schiavone, and JR. But, man, the opening match, once again, we have the Porn Bucks. I mean, the Young Bucks showing off some new facial hair going up in their match against Eddie Kingston and
Excalibur called it out because Excalibur is like, well, they look like porn stars. What?
It's just it looks better on Kenny, like the whole
Kenny looks like a member from the Bee Gees.
Yeah, especially with that hair, with curly hair. Yeah,
I thought he was gonna come out, hit that pose.
Oh, bro! Like I figured he was just gonna do his whole promo in like the really high pitched voice, like Barry Gibbs. But how come the Young Bucks? They don't look young anymore. They're gonna have to take the young out of the name if they're gonna keep up with the weird facial hair. Especially Matt Jackson looked weird with the mustache, but Nick does not look right with facial hair. Even with that goatee, it looked like they were trying to play like the evil doppelganger of themselves, like you see in cartoons. Like they're clean face, but you know they're bad because of that facial hair. That's what it looked like. So I like that they're leaning into that heel character.
They're from the Darkest Timeline community.
They really are, which is what's happening, because every time they have their matches, they always have outside interference to get them to win. Until tonight, because even though the Good Brothers, who I'm surprised had their full beards and they didn't try anything weird, they were distracting the ref. But as Brandon Cutler was trying to use that cold spray again, the elite hunter himself, Frankie Kazarian, gets involved. He stops Brandon Cutler from getting involved, which allows Penta to hit the package pile driver and then the Hurricane by Eddie Kingston to let them get the win. And because of that, they have earned themselves an AEW Tag Team Championship match next week at Road Rager in Miami, Florida.
I'm hyped for this, man. This was really good. First of all, before we dive into talking about this match on how good it was, let's talk about this crowd reaction tonight. This was a rowdy crowd. That looked pretty packed. Was that sold out tonight?
Yeah, I believe so, because they've been marketing.
It's right down the road from your house.
Yeah, they've been marketing that this is the last time they're going to be in Daly's place for a very long time. So anybody that has been interested in going to an AEW show here in Jacksonville, this was their chance. So we've been fortunate enough to go to a couple of shows. I've been able to go to a few. So like if you've been there, you know what it feels like to be in Daly's place in that outside amphitheater and having that energy, especially now that fans are back in attendance. So this was their one chance. If they hadn't, get out there, check out these guys, especially fresh off of the matches that we had last week. They wanted to see the fallout. So yeah, they had a packed house tonight in Jacksonville, which lent a lot of energy to a lot of these matches, especially that one, especially from, especially for the people that they want to cheer for, which is the biggest ones right now. They're most over are Jungle Boy and Dr. Britt Baker DMD. And you heard it. You heard it from the crowd, whether it was singing Jungle Boy's entrance or cheering for Britt Baker in her match. Man, like Jacksonville was ready to go off tonight, and they did. And they did. It's starting off hot with this tag team championship, or this tag team match with the champions, I should say.
Yeah, no, I think it was, like I said, I was heavily entertained by the Bucks. I've been getting more heavily entertained every single week with the Bucks, and with the porn stashes and the handlebar mustache. I mean, they just took it to a whole nother level. But I absolutely loved that Penta and Eddie, the best friends, they're true best friends, got the win, and they get a championship opportunity next week. So let's see what happens. I'm sure there's going to be some shenanigans involved because it's the Elite, and when you say the Elite, there's going to be something happening.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we did have a promo with Jungle Boy and Christian backstage, and looks like Christian has a new loyal friend to back him up.
Yeah, so as he was talking to Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus came back. He wasn't here on Saturday. He wasn't able to come to the aid of Jungle Boy, but he thanked Christian for having been there. And then Christian actually lets him know that he's apparently a quarter Cosmoceratops on his mother's side. So, of course, that helped endure him to Luchasaurus. So we have a nice little bond going on with Christian Cage and the rest of Jurassic Express, which we saw later on, especially in that match against Jungle Boy versus Jack Evans of the Hybrid 2, representing the Hardy family office, where, fresh off of the loss that he had against Kenny Omega, he still had the crowd support. They were singing his entrance, and of course, Jericho had to be snarky and says, "I don't like this whole crowd singing along with the entrance. I think that's, I don't like that. I don't like that at all." Of course, everybody sings Judas every time he comes out, which he did when he came out. But yeah, it just goes to show, like, Jungle Boy is still over. Got a nice solid win over Jack Evans using the snare trap. But then we still have these feuds still going on. The Hardy family office comes out. The whole idea is they want to injure Jungle Boy, whether they want or not. They wanted to injure Jungle Boy, but of course, Luchasaurus, Marco Stunt, and Christian Cage come out for the save. And finally, Christian Cage got one up on Matt Hardy, because for the last few weeks, he keeps getting hit with the Twist of Fate. This time, he was able to hit the kill switch on Matt Hardy. So they're still continuing on this feud between Christian Cage and Matt Hardy, yet the Matt Hardy office is going up against the Jurassic Express. So we got multiple storylines still in this little segment right here.
Now, we did have a quick interview. Tony Schiavone interviewed Ethan Page ahead of the coffin match, just to find out that Sting interrupted this promo, because Ethan Page and Darby Allin have years and years of history, not only just on AEW, but on the independent, where Ethan Page has legitimately injured Darby Allin over and over again. And he really just wants to put an end to it, which is why he wants to have this coffin match. Cue the music, black out the lights. Sting makes a comeback. Now I'm usually critical of Sting because, he was showing up every week, but it's been like 3 or 4 weeks since we've seen Sting. So this was okay. I was okay with it, right?
This is when you spread it out. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. We don't have to see Sting every week.
This was okay. But it was what Sting did when he brought out the coffin, revealing Darby Allin to come out. He attacks both Page and Scorpio Sky. Sting gets in there, hits a Scorpion death drop. Allin and Page stand tall. However, next week's Road Rager, we're not going to get the coffin match anymore because Ethan Page called it off until Darby Allin can control himself. So until then, no hands on Ethan Page. Do not touch the Man of the Year.
Man, I was so hoping to see that next week.
Okay. All right, jumping into your comments before we keep going here, guys. Let's see what we got here. Joe Davidson on YouTube saying, "Hey, Jose, how you doing today, my guy? Doing well. Thanks for joining us." Let's see here. James Espanto Fernando Taguay watching us on Facebook. Jose and Rico, you guys going to Miami for the pay-per-view? Probably not. I wish I would. You are? Oh, you're going to Road Rager. And you had the audacity not to tell me, Rico?
Yeah, I just found out recently.
Uh-huh.
I just found out recently because, of course, me living here in Jacksonville.
You and I are going to have words after the show, Rico.
We will. But as a gift from one of my friends who I took to an
if it's a gift,
here,
then that's okay. You know what? You don't have. It's fine.
I took him here to Jacksonville. He's coming down to Miami from New York, so he got me the tickets to go. So, I mean, it's Road Ranger, and we got Penta and Eddie Kingston. We got all these matches. I mean, so I mean, if you want, I can tune in live. I can broadcast live from Miami, Florida, but I don't know how good the reception is. We tried that at WrestleMania.
Well, it worked pretty good at WrestleMania, so it may work well at Daly's place.
We'll see what we can do there.
Reading some more of your guys' comments here. Ozzy Madero's on YouTube saying the condo was collapsed and it was in Dade County. Oh, we're talking about what happened in Miami last week about that huge building in Surfside in Miami where 12-story building collapsed on each other. It's been all over the news. We hope everyone is okay over there. But yeah, I don't think the James L. Knight Center is near that. Reading more of your comments, guys. Timothy Thompson, AEW I found very boring tonight. Lazy and promos seemed scripted. We'll jump into that. There's some things that I think the matches were better than the promos and the backstage segments. But let's jump into our next match. What else do we have on AEW Dynamite?
Yeah, so the next match we had was a TNT Championship match where we had the best man, Miro, with that brand new music with it caught me off guard. I was not expecting that when it was Miro's time to come out, but of course he put down one Brian Pillman Jr. I'm sorry, we kind of expected this was going to happen. Sorry, Brian, you're not on that level to defeat Miro just yet. You're not going to get that upset win like Isaiah Swerve Scott did to Bronson Reed because you're not that established. But of course, how did you feel about Miro's new entrance? Because it caught me off guard. I know they're trying to go with like a siren kind of effect, like to warn you that danger is coming kind of thing. How did you feel about this?
First, I would like to take full credit for this. Okay. Remember when I said that they need to put some respect on Miro's name? I think this is the first step. You put in brand new theme music. You gave him a dominating win over Brian Pillman Jr. Okay. Now, he was in the mid card, but tonight's main event was insane. And we are going to talk about that extensively because tonight they gave tonight's main event like 40 minutes, 45 minutes. I just hope that they continue to put that respect on Miro's name, on God's favorite champion. Okay. Because this guy is on another level right now. Okay. And this guy needs to be in the main event. So I'm hoping at some point within the next month that he's closing out AEW Dynamite with a title match, just like Darby Allin did for 10 weeks straight. That's it. That's my rep. That's it.
Just again, I mean, at least this main event kind of made some more sense, but you're right. Like, it's the TNT Championship. Like, it's a title. If you're not going to put the AEW Championship on the line, which we did have an in-ring promo with Tony Schiavone and Kenny Omega, who after his, defeat of Jungle Boy, he ran down all the guys that he beat without naming names. He kind of gave descriptions of every single person, but we knew who he was talking about. He ran through pretty much all the top guys on the roster. So he's going to take a little break from the AEW Championship. He's going to defend the other belts on the other promotions, but he doesn't need to defend the AEW Championship. And out comes the Dark Order. And of course, Evil Uno is starting alluding to, somebody else, not himself, because he already lost the TNT Championship match. But he has a friend of the group that should be the next in line to face one, Kenneth Omega. And of course, Kenny comes back with, that's who you think. If you're thinking about who I'm thinking about, then he's too afraid to fight me. If we're talking about the same guy, he would be upset with you speaking for him. And if you're speaking about the same guy, there's no way that he can beat me. This, of course, alluding to one Hangman Adam Page, which, of course, we saw later on with another segment.
Are you talking about the guy that I think you're talking about?
This is the guy that I think you're talking about. And, I think that they were talking about, too, because they didn't say names. They didn't name names. But he is currently the number one contender for that AEW Championship. But I did like that little backstage segment where he was upset with Dark Order, and they tell him, because he thought, oh, you think I'm afraid of Kenny? They're like, no, we just know that you're afraid of failure. You don't want to lose, but it's your time, Hangman. Like, you've done so much for us. Like, when Evil Uno lost to Miro, you were the first one in there, and you lifted him up on your shoulders. Like, you have been there for all of us. We're going to be here for you. And then I love that last little line by Alex Silver as he's walking away. It's like, you deserve this, man. You've been doing so much. It's your time. You deserve this. So it's really adding. It's starting to add that. It's starting to start that fire to that final match that we've been waiting for. The one I feel is ultimately going to dethrone, the cleaner himself, Kenny Omega, in Hangman Adam Page. So I think this is it. This is like the little embers that are going to start building up this little feud between Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega, being stoked by the Dark Order and all the good things that he's done with him. Like, it's a long-term story from when they were tag team champions to where they are now. We're finally starting to build that storyline, and we're finally going to get to that point. And I think this is what's going to lead to their match at All Out in September. I think that's the match we're going to get, is Kenny Omega versus Hangman Adam Page in September for All Out. So until we can get the AEW Championship as the main event, you're right, it should be the TNT Championship. But tonight, the match that they had, that they gave pretty much the last hour, because as they said, with however many minutes or TV time remaining, I look down and I see it's like 9:20. Like, I texted you, I'm like, how much time are they going to give this match between Sammy and MJF? Because they didn't say anything else afterwards. I didn't know about the little video package, which was only like 3 or 4 minutes. But they gave that time. They gave that match a lot of time because they were really, really behind these guys. But ultimately, going back to the point, yeah, they need to put more respect on Miro. Put him in the main event. For a lot of these shows, he should be the one closing out. You're going to start with the Young Bucks in AEW Championship. If you're not going to put Kenny Omega in that AEW Championship match like you did with Jungle Boy this past Saturday, it needs to be the TNT one. You need to show the rest of the world that you hold Miro to that high of a level.
Exactly. Just hold him to the same regard that you did with Darby Allin, because you were closing out shows for several weeks in a row with Darby Allin putting that TNT Championship on the line. All I'm saying, Miro is that caliber of a superstar. He can main event. He is the champion. Put some respect on his name and put him in that spot. But let's talk about this hell of a main event, bro, because 40 plus minutes of probably one of the best matches I've seen in a long time, okay, on AEW. And it almost feels like this was a response to Monday Night's Raw's Ricochet versus John Morrison, because that was an insane match. That was one of the best matches on Raw in the Thunderdome era since the inception of the Thunderdome. So I thought that was really good. But this match delivered on all sorts of different levels, from technicality to high flying to submission. The only thing, if I had to nitpick about this match,
I wonder,
would be the finish. Because we kind of expected it, because Sammy is over. Sammy is over big time. Not to mention that the fans on the latter half of the match, the fans were all standing up, every single one of them.
Yep.
They were really into this match, and there were some spots there. A tombstone, pile driver from the second rope, and you kick out. How do you kick out of that?
How, Sway? You don't kick out of a tombstone, let alone coming from the second turnbuckle. You don't do that.
I bet you Mark Calloway's got to be
yeah. You can't say rolling in his grave, but he's like, yeah, the Undertaker's rolling in his grave.
Yeah,
but only to be outdone with the 630 senton that Sammy hit on MJF, and MJF kicks out of that too. Like, this is getting like Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly level of like kicking out of things that you should not
you
be able to kick out.
But period. He shouldn't have. Yeah,
Darby Allin status, bro. This is Darby Allin status. Kicking out of everything you're not supposed to.
On one point, I get it, because AEW is like, the fan made promotion. It's for the hardcore fans who really want. So like, when you give those fans, a really good match, and then you give them those false finishes and another false finish, and then you hit something massive that you should not kick out of, and you still kick out of it. It's
like, I love
this. Like, okay.
I love the spot that they did where Sammy's pinning MJF, but he like goes so deep into the cover that he brings MJF's foot to the ropes. Like that's clever. That's smart because you're showing like all that adrenaline. He hit a big spot. All right, he goes for the pin, but he doesn't think about where he is, where he's pinning him. And that could be one way where you can, have this amazing spot of a tombstone pile driver or a 360 or 630 senton and have somebody not kick out, but just positioning wise, okay, it makes sense. You don't have the energy to, thrust your legs out to lift up your shoulder. No, you barely got your hand out. No, you barely grab the rope or barely like the most smallest movement that you can, but somehow get out of it shows intelligence as opposed to this where it feels like it's a little bit more unbelievable when you take this huge spot and then you're A-okay. Like speaking of that high spot. So if you guys didn't see Raw, there was a spot where John Morrison is sitting on the barricade and Ricochet hits a crossbody from the top of the turnbuckle through John Morrison to the outside. Sammy saw that and said, hold my beer, because he sets up MJF on the barricade and he does a far-reaching, like a 450 splash from the top of the turnbuckle, hitting the barricade, landing onto MJF through something that happened to be over there, and then picks him up and they throw him back into the ring and they continue this match. Like, where you had a double count out there that made sense on Raw, this is like, okay, we get it. They're young. They have, a lot more, I guess, stamina and a lot more adrenaline. But at some point, you got to be like, all right, like, you can't take all this damage and still be A-okay with this. But this just goes to show that AEW is huge behind their future stars. They're huge behind Jungle Boy.
Very true.
They're huge behind Sammy Guevara and MJF. Those are going to be the three guys that we're going to be talking about for a long, long time. When you're talking about like Randy Orton, John Cena kind of lineage, this is who you're talking about. These guys are going to be AEW staples for a very long time, and they put it on display for us tonight as they should have, especially giving 35 minutes to MJF and Sammy Guevara, only to have it come down to shenanigans because we still have this feud going on with Pinnacle in the Inner Circle. We have a 6-man tag match next week at Road Rager with Proud and Powerful with Jake Hager, and Conan is going to be on their side versus FTR, Wardlow, and Tully Blanchard. So we still have all of these, storylines still intertwined, which, again, you set up a great 35-minute match between these two future stars to have Sean Spears come out, hit Sammy Guevara on the head with the chair, and that allowed MJF to get the win. It's he came so far in that match, so many good spots, so many ridiculous spots, a little outlandish, but it told a good story, and then you have it end like that.
Yeah, but for even though I didn't like the finish, I feel like the finish was appropriate for this story. Because you still have MJF and Chris Jericho that are feuding, and that they're going to have a face-to-face next week, which is probably going to lead into a match for All Out. We still have Jake Hager and Wardlow that still got beef. Sammy Guevara and Sean Spears got beef. So it only made sense to kind of continue it. I just wish we would have had a clear finish. That's all. That's all.
Yeah.
Because they all could have been out there. But at the end of the day, they didn't need it. I mean, he's the bad guy. He's going to win by dirty tricks. So it's wrestling. What am I talking about?
Yeah. Like, we knew MJF had to win because the match with Jericho that's coming up. So we knew he had to get his one win over Sammy Guevara. But it's just like they've been pushing Sammy so hard ever since he got the big win at Stadium Stampede that it's like, all right, he has to lose somehow, but how do we keep him strong? All right, he has to be, he has to get distracted and be beaten by shenanigans with Sean Spears hitting a headshot with the chair. Not like a chair shot from behind or a low blow. No, he hit him on top of the head with that chair, which is what allowed MJF to crawl over and get the pin on him. So, yeah, it's to be expected. But you're right. Like, you can imagine this match happening, say, like a year's time without any of these factions for the AEW Championship. Like, you can easily see that kind of match happening again.
I completely agree. Guys, sound off in the comments. Let us know your ratings for this week's NXT and AEW. Rico, you go first. NXT rating and AEW rating. 1 through 10.
For NXT, I'm gonna give it a solid 7. So for me, it got major points for having the title switch, but it was a spot with Mercedes Martinez, man. Like, they just harpered on it a little too much for me, for my taste, and I think they could have handled it better. Yes, I understand if it's live, it's hard to maintain that, but I think that really put a halt to kind of like the momentum the entire show had, because everything was kind of like just feuding together, everything was going well. The storylines, Johnny Gargano versus Karrrion Kross, was carrying the entire show, and then you had this like hiccup right in the middle, and it just took me out of just the whole experience of NXT, because I was worried about Mercedes, because that looked horrendous, and the way that she was reacting to it, it scared me. And so again, like you said, hopefully she recovers a lot faster. Hopefully we'll see her soon and she can continue, to do great work. But to me, that like hiccup, like stopped the momentum for me. So that gave the edge to AEW, to WWE Dynamite, which I'll give it a solid 8. Just because I thought there was some good matches, some decent promos, but I think they could have done without the Vicky Guerrero and Nyla Rose versus Dr. Britt Baker and Rebel. They could have done something else. But other than that, like you said, like a lot of the things they did continues all these storylines, whether it's, the Team Taz still figuring themselves out, and they're going to have an internal match where we're going to have Ricky Starks going up against Brian Cage for that FTW championship. So, they're working on some family therapy. So they're setting up a lot of great matches for these next 3 weeks. So between Road Rager, the 2 weeks of Fyter Fest, and Fight for the Fallen, they set up a lot of good stuff coming up. So for that, I give the slight nod to AEW for this week.
I think both shows get an 8 this week, man. NXT did an awesome job with Hit Row and Isaiah Swerve Scott. I think the timing was right. The storytelling with Adam Cole, Samoa Joe, and Kyle O'Reilly is excellent. And also the storytelling with Johnny Gargano and Karrrion Kross has been great. So overall, I thought NXT was good. AEW also did a really good job with tonight's main event and last week's main event. They had a really good, a solid way to close out the show. But how can you beat JR saying WWE Dynamite to close out AEW Dynamite? And just for that, AEW gets the win this week.
Man,
even though I scored them both an 8.
It gets a slight nod to them. I mean, they had a nice video package where they showed a nice
that was great too.
Story.
That was great too.
But the whole time in Daly's place,
that makes me wonder. That makes me wonder if WWE is going to do like a one last farewell to the Thunderdome.
Oh my God.
Come to the Monday Night Raw, that last Monday Night Raw in the Thunderdome. What if like the Fiend comes back and burns down the Thunderdome or something like that?
That would be cool. If they do a video package of just like, oh, here's the Thunderdome, and like show like clips of WrestleMania without fans, like, all right. Okay, I see what you're doing. You're being petty. That's kind of sad. That's childish. But if they do something cool like that, because we talked about it before with Retribution, like how cool would that have been if Retribution set fire to, wherever they were at, and that forced WWE to go into the Thunderdome? Like that would be cool, because you're tying in two things. So if you're going to burn it down with, even if you do it with Alexa, that's fine. You're doing something interesting. But if they decide to just do a video package of like, oh, Bon Voyage, Thunderdome, thank you for everything, it's like, really? Now you're trying a little too hard. Now you clearly have somebody watching WWE Dynamite to tell you what's going on over there.
Jumping in the comments here, Steven Chambers says both shows gets an 8. Ozzy Medeiros gives NXT a 7.5, and he gives AEW an 8.5, so a point little higher. Let's see here. What else? Christopher Ryan Cooper saying hashtag WWE Dynamite. And Steven Chambers saying JR drinking too much of the bubbly, hanging out too much with Chris Jericho.
I mean, he was there at commentary. So.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for tonight's show. We want to thank you so much for hanging out with us for this last hour. We really appreciate you guys just hanging out and tuning in with us here for the debrief. Remember, guys, make sure you are subscribing to our YouTube channel. A lot of our exclusive interviews are going to be jumping over to the YouTube exclusive side only, and a lot of other shows like Writing with Russo are going to be exclusively on YouTube. Our daily shows like The Top Story will still be available on all platforms, as well as the debrief and all of our post shows like Legion of Raw with Vince Russo and Smack Talk with Dirty Dutch Mantella and Rick Cucino on SP3. And as always, Wednesday nights with Rico and myself here on the debrief. Make sure you engage with the show. If you're watching us on demand, hit the like button, the heart button, the laugh emoji, the angry emoji. Let us know what you felt about both shows this week. Sound off in the comments. We'll read them after we're done with tonight's broadcast, and let us know what your rating was for AEW and NXT this week. 1 out of 10. Sound off in the comments and let us know. Tomorrow night, we got Weekends of Wrestling. We'll be on at 8 p.m. here on Facebook and on YouTube. We're going to be talking about everything that went down in this week in wrestling, the latest in wrestling news, and we will talk about pro wrestling action, what happened last Sunday, which was really fun, and we'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow on Weekends of Wrestling. So it's going to be fun. So for Rico El Glorioso, I'm Jose G. Make sure you follow us on all social media, and we'll see you next week. And remember, guys, when watching wrestling, Rico, tell them what's the most important thing to do while watching wrestling.
Enjoy it. Enjoy wrestling.